Okay, bell ringer for today. Describe Hitler's step-by-step process of his master plan for Jews, communists, and political oppositions since the beginning of his supreme leadership in Germany in 1934. So we talked about this yesterday. Okay, we talked about how this kind of progressed in a terrible, terrible way during his leadership, starting in 34, 33, 34, and moving up until the ending of the war. All right. Yesterday, I watched a video on the liberation of one of those concentration camps, and an American soldier described it as, and how terrible it was. All right, I'll give you some time to work on that. Give you another minute or two to finish up. What's up, Troy?
Hey.
Yeah, go ahead. Like your bandana. Looks like a cowboy, an outlaw. All right, so where does this begin? Where should we start here? Go ahead, Jeffrey.
First, Hitler sort of alienated Jews by saying they were the white or the undesirables from Britain.
All right, so I guess you could say right at the end of World War I, right? Okay, where this all established with the Treaty of Versailles, pushed Germany in this huge depression. And there's a lot of different types of anarchy and chaos on the streets. And there's a lot of many different ideas of what type of government they should accept moving forward. And a lot of distrust in, what was that government called again before Hitler came into power? What was that called? You guys remember? What was the government? Griffin, you remember? No. Well, the Reichstag was the building, yeah, the government building, but what type of government was it? What was the name of it? What's that?
Fascist.
Okay, that's what he pushes for, is fascist dictatorship. But before that, what was it called? It was a republic, or what? Jeffrey?
Weimar Republic.
Yeah, the Weimar Republic. Good job, good job. So after, there's a lot of distrust in the Weimar Republic through that economic depression after the end of World War I, and with all the reparations placed on Germany. So he was building up this hatred for Jews, these communists, and different people that had a different political opinion of his Nazi ideology. And He wrote a book. What was that book called? When he was in jail, when he tried to overthrow the Weimar Republic violently. Griffin? Mein Kampf, good. And he described, why Germany was in the place it was at the end of World War I and what needed to happen. And he detailed in that book Deloitte, the Volk, right? The higher class versus the lower class, it's undesirable people. And the only way to solve this issue was this massive genocide, right? And push for this Aryan race, this Aryan culture. Okay. And with Lebensraum, right? What was Lebensraum? You guys remember? Forney? Yeah, living space. You expand it, okay, and claim more land for the Aryan race, okay. So that being said, he gained a lot of support because he was pushing German nationalism and to try to solve the issues of this economic depression at the end of World War I, moving up into the 1930s, and he gained a lot of popularity, okay. He wanted to try to bring prosperous times back to Germany, which he gained some support for, and he became chancellor, right? 33, 34. And then eventually, once Hindenburg died, he became supreme leader. And right away, he started with his master plan. And I guess we would say, where do we start? Where do we start? What did he create and act that was trying to pull citizenship away from these Jewish people in Germany? Troy?
Nuremberg Laws.
Yeah, the Nuremberg Laws. Good job. Good job. So, identification cards had to be presented wherever these Jewish people, Jewish German citizens went, okay, and they were forbidden any type of service at these areas, okay, and we talked a little bit about that at the start of the semester. What was next? What was next? Forney? Kristallnacht, good job. Night of Broken Glass, where many of the German citizens, the Hitler Youth, the SS, the Nazi followers destroyed many different types of businesses, restaurants, cemeteries, synagogues, you name it. And some of the deportation started at this moment, even before that. But like I said, this was kind of a step-by-step progression showing his master plan to the rest of the world and to the people of Germany. Like I mentioned, people were going along with it. If they didn't go along with it, they were viewed as enemies to the Nazi Party and could be thrown in these concentration camps or killed. Right. So through fear, through paranoia, where they controlled the people. All right, so then it will lead to concentration camps, where we talked about, we talked a little bit about that yesterday, and then eventually death camps once these the Allied powers were pushing in to the German borders, okay, trying to get rid of any type of evidence that this was going on and killing mass people like that. And we know the camps look like, okay, with these homes that were, well, not really even homes, were these just shelters, really, with no heating, no water, electricity. These people were given no food. And we talked about and watched that video yesterday when the Allied powers came and liberated the camp, when they're giving food to these people once they were set free, right? Just little pieces of chocolate would even kill these people because of the lack of nutrition that they had and how shrunken their stomachs were. And so it was a sad, sad state of affairs here, what occurred and what happened. All right, good. So if you mentioned that, that might be a question on the test. That progression, what we just talked about. Okay, again, that'll probably be on the quiz. So make sure you guys remember that bell ringer there. And make sure you guys hit on those key parts and those key points with that explanation. Okay, so term for today, just one. So we have the Nuremberg Trials. Nuremberg Trials. There we go. Just one term. I think I had it up for you yesterday, so it shouldn't take you too long to write this one down. Probably already have it down. Hey, Kira. Just got done with the bell ringer then. So did you get video of me running the third base? Kira?
I did, but I didn't save it.
Oh. Adrian was telling me about it. I was like, oh, my. That's great. All right, Nuremberg Trials. What do you have here? Serene, what do you got, buddy?
Trials of German law.
Yeah, good job. Good, good. So 1946, after World War II, there was a military tribunal of the four Allied powers, the United States, Great Britain, France, and the Soviet Union, where they would decide the fate of these Nazi leaders and officials. And this is going to try to set the stage moving forward, try to prevent any type of genocide and war crimes from happening ever again. Obviously, we know today they're still going on. Okay, they're still going on. They're still occurring. So in many cases, I think there needs to be a little bit more influence on this, right? Okay, more people need to know about these Nuremberg trials. And so high-ranking German officials were trialed, and many of them were put to death. And some of them actually committed suicide before they were given their death sentence. Like Hermann Göring was like one of the second in command to Hitler. Well, one of them anyway. There's many other ones as well, but many of these people were put to death, placed in prison for the rest of their life because of the war crimes. And biggest thing, the Holocaust, right? And a lot of this material was presented to the rest of the world of what occurred, what happened. And these camps, once they're liberated, obviously video, pictures being taken, and they're presented to the tribunal, the judges there, and many of the war criminals, the Nazi leaders, to show, hey, this is what you guys are doing. Right? We found out exactly what was going on, and we need to make sure that we can prevent this from occurring ever again. And Nuremberg trials, it was placed in Nuremberg. Why? What's so important about Nuremberg? Jeffrey?
City in Germany.
What's that?
Place in Germany.
Yeah, it's a city in Germany, but what's so important about it? Why do you think they make sure they had it there? I think I talked about this at the beginning of the chapter. What's so important about Nuremberg? So we know about the Nuremberg Laws, right? Okay. And what was so famous about Nuremberg? Forney, what do you think?
It was a place where all the Jews that lived there were basically discriminated against these laws that were put against them.
Okay, yeah. So it's almost like, hey, these laws that you created in 1935, 34, right? This was the birthplace of it, and we're going to make sure we finish it here. And there's a lot of different types of military parades in Nuremberg, okay? And one reason was that it didn't really see the destruction from World War II. It was almost like it was untouched in a way. And this is where a lot of the Nazi parades occurred. Whenever you see different types of speeches given by Hitler, parades through the streets by the Nazis, this is where mostly it was done, in Nuremberg. So what better place to have it, I guess, right? The origins of the Nazi Nuremberg. All right, so real quick, just have two slides for you. I just have a short video. So the Nuremberg trials, here's some of the Nazi leadership. Here's Göring right here. Like I mentioned, he was really high-ranking official. He was leader of the Luftwaffe, okay, so the German Air Force. And he was really one of the right-hand mans of Hitler. And he was trying to, it's interesting, if you guys ever watch the video, when they're trying to hear what they have to say, if they're guilty or not guilty, he comes up and he has his whole speech ready to go. And he says, well, it's obviously in German, but he's pretty much saying, guilty or not guilty, and then they stop him. They start hammering hitting the hammer down. It's like, all right, sit down, buddy. We already know what you did. We already know what you're a part of. We don't want to hear what you have to say, really. Okay? And there would be lawyers for these people trying to present them. Obviously, they didn't really have too much ground to speak on or speak about, but and I thought that was interesting. Göring just kind of shakes his head and goes back to his seat because he knew there's no way of getting around this or getting out of some of the war crimes that were going to be placed on him. But eventually, Göring, like I mentioned, he would commit suicide in his jail cell. He'll ingest cyanide and he'll die. So he doesn't even really get to see his fate and get to see, obviously, where he's killed. I know I talked about the Russelheim Death March and how those trials were placed as well right at the end of these Nuremberg trials. It was really a part of it, these war crimes. And 22 of these men would be killed, okay, would be executed, and several more would be lifetime in jail, okay, lifetime in jail for their parts of war crimes, starting war against peaceful nations. We know with the genocide as well, mistreatment of POWs, you name it, the list goes on and on. There's a huge list of some of the crimes that they committed during war. Again, this was trying to make sure that they could set an example moving forward, that genocide, these war crimes, and mistreatment of POWs never occur, never happen again. Treating you good back there? You almost look like you're falling over, man. Oh boy, oh boy. All right, and where else I have? I think I have this here. I might have went the other way. I apologize. Yeah, so like I mentioned, the judges that were representing the Allied powers, again, it was France, Great Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union. And really, they're the Allied powers. It makes sense. And they were trying to make sure that these German head officials, these Nazi party leaders, were taken care of, and that their crimes would never be forgotten, and that they were punished for them. Obviously, with 6 million dead with the Holocaust, and obviously many more with the war itself, just 27 million in the Soviet Union alone. The United States lost 500,000 in the Pacific theater and the European theater combined. Great Britain lost millions of people as well, close to 1 million. And France, they're invaded, they're taken over. Many civilians, many citizens were died in these areas, which really didn't belong to the war. But especially with the Soviet Union, there's so many deaths, not only with soldiers, but with civilians and people in non-combat. And something had to be done. Okay, something needed to be figured out. Obviously, it doesn't really sum up everything. It doesn't really gain the sorrow for what occurred and what happened. But something is better than nothing, right? Also, this would occur in Tokyo for the Japanese as they were expanding out into parts of the Pacific. So in China, especially, some of the atrocities that they were committing in these parts of the world and in the Pacific theater. Many of these people, it was called the Tokyo Tribunal, and many of these head officials were put to death as well for their harsh treatments of these people in these Pacific islands in China and parts of Southeast Asia. So Tokyo, the Japanese leaders as well were even trialed and put to death. Tojo, you remember talking about Hideki Tojo? Okay, he would try to commit suicide as well, but they actually caught him before he fully died, and they trialed him and put him to death by hanging. And I have a video for you, and it's just kind of in the courtroom. There's a man behind him, slaps him on top of the head, and many people kind of chuckle about it. It's like, oh, how dare you? He slaps him on the head. So I'll show that to you guys here soon. I think makes somewhat a comedic relief out of this whole situation. All right, so again, these powers, the Axis powers, Japan, especially Germany, were trialed for their war crimes. So not only in Nuremberg trials, but the Tokyo trials. All right, so I'll show you a video of the Nuremberg trials and Tojo getting slapped on top of the head. I think you guys will enjoy it.